What's up, my geeks? Jeffrey Powers here from Geekazine. Today we're taking a look at this. This is the TobenONE 13-in-1 Mac Mini M4 dock with the SSD enclosure, the hub, and everything else. We're going to unbox it. We're going to take a look at it next on Geekazine. What's up, my geeks? Jeffrey Powers from Geekazine. Think Magazine, put in a geek. TobenONE is sponsoring this video, and they are getting to review the video before it gets published. All opinions, though, are of Geekazine. You can find out all my review policies over at geekazine.com/review. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below or contact me. And if you got a product that you want me to take a look at, just use the contact page to do that. I'd like to thank my friends over at Patreon for helping me put all these shows together. You can do that too over at patreon.com/geekazine or a one-time tip over at venmo.com/geekazine. All right, what is this? This is the TobenONE 13-in-1 Mac Mini M4 dock with 8 terabyte SSD enclosure on the bottom. It's for the Mac Mini. It's basically one of those, you set the Mac Mini on top of the hub type devices, and it will give you extra plugs, USB, HDMI, and a lot more. Plus, with the extra storage, it allows you to hold on to things. These docks with extra storage are really helpful because I can put an NVMe into there and I get a couple terabytes worth of data that I can use to transfer, mostly for transfer holdover stuff. This will lay this flat. It'll give it a little bit of a higher size on the M4 enclosure, but the M4 will set right on top. Plus, there'll be a button on this, which is pretty exciting. So you won't have to deal with that back button that the M4 has. There'll be a side button. So let's go ahead and unbox this. Let's take a look at it and then plug it into the M4, and then I'll give you some final thoughts. All right. Start here. So once again, this is for the Mac Mini M4, the M4 Pro. This also has 4K 144 Hertz DP, 4K 60 Hertz HDMI, 5 USBs, and the SD micro audio, one touch power button. So we're going to open this up, and of course we first see some protective foam. We got instructions right here. We've got our tools, which is basically a screwdriver, a couple screws, and a thermal pad for when you put in an NVMe into the drive. And then we've got the unit right here. Pretty straightforward on the unboxing. Basically what this is, we've got, it rises around the fan because you need a little bit of ventilation for the air to get out, because the fan is down, or the heat dissipation actually happens through here. Now keep in mind, if you're doing a lot of things and you're really maxing out your M4, it might get a little bit hot, and the best thing to do is just lift it up off of this base and set it back down. I'm not sure if this is magnetic. I guess we'll find out once we put the M4 onto it, but that's basically the bottom part of the case. We've got the cord right here, and the cord is actually affixed into here. It doesn't plug out. On the end here, we have two USB-C ports. Now keep in mind, this is not Thunderbolt. This is USB-C. So 10 gigabits per second is the maximum speed. That will plug right into your port, and it will take up to USB-C Thunderbolt ports. It cannot run around to the front and plug into the USB-C on the 4. It has to plug into the back area. Now on the bottom here, we have a display port option. We have a HDMI option, which runs at 4K 60 Hertz. The display port will run up to 144 Hertz. And then we have an extra USB-C plug from here, not a Thunderbolt, but USB-C plug. And then this is a combo jack right here for your headphone and for your microphone. On the side right here, we have a SD card and a micro SD card. And then over here, we have 4 different USB-A ports. Two of them, I'm guessing, are 2, and 2 of them are extended. They are the orange ports. Orange plugs usually mean that it's an always-on plug. So if you have the machine off, and let's say you're charging your phone or something like that, you want to plug it into here to keep them running. But it'll all depend on how this flows through the Mac. So if the Mac is not going to let power go through here, no power is going to come through here. On the side, we have nothing, but on the back here, there's one more thing I want to show you, and that's this little plug right here. This is the power plug. Now, you might think that it's some cool technology that'll go through here, but it's not. It really is just a plunger style press from here. So when you push that down, you see that little tab go up, and that's what turns us on. Now, if you have to separate your Mac 4 for more airflow, that makes this button rendered non-useful. So keep that in mind if you have to do that. But for the most part, this is the dock in a whole. And to clarify, all of these ports on this dock are only 10 gigabits per second. They are not any type of Thunderbolt or anything like that. The most you can get out of this, of course, is USB-C 3.2. One last thing on the bottom here, that's the NVMe enclosure. Interesting enough, it looks like a battery bay door. So you just basically pull the tab open, lift it open. There's your NVMe enclosure. And of course, you have spots to put different sized NVMEs in here. Older NVMEs might not work for this, so just keep that in mind if you're planning to transfer your NVMe over from an old machine to this one. With that said, we are going to plug it into our Mac M4. I first got to turn it off to see how it works. Here's my Mac M4, and of course we have the TobenONE right here. As you can see, it's just set it down, and there is no way that it stays there like that. I was hoping there was like a little magnet there, so if I lifted this up like this, it would lift up the whole unit, but it's not doing it that way, and that's fine. But the best part, like I said, if you're running something where you need more ventilation, you can lift this up a little bit and put like a shim or something like that underneath it, so it'll stay cooler. But this is designed to stay cool as best as possible with this. Like here, as you can see, there's vents on both sides, and you should not block those whatsoever. So in the back here, like I said, we see the button, and it feels fine pushing down. Let's do it without me holding onto it. So if I push on this button, you see how it raises up. That's the other reason why I was hoping there was a magnet in here to hold this down, because you see how it's pushing up on the M4, and it'd be nice maybe put something on top, and then you get that full button press. But I have a feeling that this will be the button press. We'll find out once we plug this in and then get this onto the network. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to push this on its own. Push it again. There we go. You really have to push on that to get that to turn on, because once again, if you lift this, that's not going to be connecting with the power button. So that being able to, and it's not easy. There we go. There we go. Nice and set there. So basically that's that. I'm going to turn this off really quick because I want to show you something else. That is the NVMe. Underneath, like I said, that's where the NVMe is. So we'll just open it up. It's like a battery door, which is interesting. There's my NVMe from there, and we will definitely test the speeds. But once again, I'm only expecting 10 gigabit per second speeds coming from this. I don't have the thermal pad. It goes right on top of here. But the one thing, and it's a little concerning, is this is a plastic door. This is a plastic bottom. Of course, it goes onto the electronics. So usually when you put on a piece of thermal padding, the thermal padding goes here, and then the idea is that the heat from the NVMe is supposed to transfer through the thermal padding onto whatever metal plate. This is not a metal plate. It will do some conduction, but not much. So I didn't put on the paste just yet. I usually leave the pad off until I know that this is how I'm going to run for a while, because we're just going to be doing basic tests with this. So let's go ahead and put this back on. Let's go ahead and put this back in. There we go. We'll plug that back in. And as you can see, once again, like I said, you lose 2 ports right there when you plug this into this unit, and there's no way that you can do it from the other end because those ports are more separated and they're on the other side of the unit. If I would have been able to have this plug over here using these ports, which are 10 gigabit per second, I could really utilize my Thunderbolt 4 or my Thunderbolt 5 ports in the back. But I do have the extra HDMI port, I do have the display port, and I do have an extra USB-C at 10 gigabits per second right here. So let's go ahead and plug this back in. And once again, we're going to turn this on again. Let's see how it goes. There we go. Pushed it in, turned it back on, and we're ready to go. So let me hook this up so you can see what's going on here. So I have it turned on and I am seeing my drive right there. And of course, it's got some stuff on there. It's mostly throwaway. So let's go ahead and do a quick speed test on there. And as you can see, it's doing something very interesting. Notice how what it just did was it started at about 1200 megabits per second and then slowly wound its way down on the right. Now it's down to 318 megabits per second. The read, let's see what happens here. We're starting at 800. See how that needle's pretty consistent? That's great. Now, if we watch the write again, it's going to start at 1200, but watch how it starts to dip down. So ultimately, the write is not really 1200. We saw even a little pause right there, which tells me that it's having a harder time writing to it, taking up 2 of your Thunderbolt bays just to do that. And same, the read numbers are staying pretty consistent at 800 megabits per second. Now remember, this is a 10 gigabit per second transfer, and that's not 10 gigabytes, that's 10 gigabits. So we're seeing about 800 megabytes per second transfer as we go. If you're doing anything like doing any type of video, with this speed test, we see this, what type of video we can do. If you're doing simple 1080p video, you're fine. But if you get up to higher resolutions with big frame rates, you might run into problems. So there it is right there. If you're using it to store stuff, you need a couple extra USB ports, then it's perfect. But that's basically the numbers that we're getting through that speed test. That's pretty much it on the setup and the go. Let's go through some pros and cons here. First of all, keep in mind, this is not Thunderbolt. This is USB-C running at 10 gigabits per second. So it's not going to be the fastest dock in the world. It does have the connections, so you can plug in USB ports and then the always-on ports. So if you're charging your iPhone or something like that, if you turn off the machine, it doesn't turn off the charge, which is nice. We have the dock, and it didn't have some sort of magnetic system in it that would hold on to the Mac Mini M4. I don't know if they can or not, but if they could, it'd be nice to have some sort of clamp or something like that. You might be able to put some duct tape on it. But the button itself, that becomes a bigger problem because the button is basically a little lever push to the actual button. And if that's not properly on the dock, then it's harder to push the button. Even with it properly on the dock, I found that it was a little bit harder to push that button. Overall, it does work. You plug it in. You plug in the USB-C. I'm not sure why it needs 2 USB-C ports to do this, but you plug that in and you're good to go from there. And the ultimate result is you have an extra NVMe drive on the machine to store files, and I would highly recommend using that NVMe for storage. Anything that if that NVMe was to go away tomorrow, you wouldn't miss it. That's the bottom line. So it's basic storage. But with the write and the read speeds, it's not going to be the fastest thing in the world for your needs. So that begs the question, what do you think of that TobenONE M4 dock. Is that something that you're looking for, or do you want something a little bit faster? Let me know in the notes below over at geekazine.com or youtube.com/geekazine, where you can like, subscribe, and of course, hit that bell so you know when the next video comes out. Until next time, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching. You guys geek out and compute faster with TobenONE.